Good evening, everyone. I'm calling the Silver Lake School Committee meeting to order for June 13th, 2019. This is my big 2 minutes of fame. The reason why I guess that is we are reorganizing tonight. So I would like to take nominations from the floor for a chair for Silver Lake.
I'll make a motion that we to nominate Jason Frazier as the chair.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Congratulations.
Unanimous. Congratulations.
It's an honor to serve you again in this capacity. And at this time, I will take nominations for our vice chair.
I nominate Eric.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Eric being our vice chair?
Aye.
It's also unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for nomination for secretary.
I nominate Paula.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations for the position of secretary? All those in favor of Paula being our secretary?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. And last but not least, I will accept nominations now for assistant treasurer.
Nominate Leslie Ann. I'd like to nominate Mike.
Do I have a second on either nomination?
I don't know if I can second his second name.
Mr. Chair, I don't accept my nomination. I'll defer to Mike.
So you second the nomination?
Yes.
from Mike? Okay. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for assistant treasurer? All those in favor of Mike being our assistant treasurer? It's unanimous. And we will hold off on all other nominations and subcommittees until later at our meeting, so we don't hold our Union 31 friends longer than they need to be here, and so we don't delay in welcoming the students for their performance. So I will hand this back over to our superintendent.
Excellent. Actually, Jim, are you still here?
Yes.
Is Mr. DePiel in there somewhere? Mr. DePiel, do you want to introduce your students and Mrs. Panache, or would you like me to?
No,
You stayed to do this, so.
I'm just talking to the kids to
Okay.
let them know.
Okay.
If they'd like to know when they're going to be on TV in a second. So I am here, I just want to say thank you guys for your continued support with some of our students that have been really working hard this year in the Science Club, working on their NASA projects, and they're very excited to come here and talk about that. I'm very lucky to have Ms. Panache here with us tonight, too. She's the advisor for the Science Club, that not only has been working with them in connection to this NASA project, but she's also the one who coordinated and facilitated their experience down to the Kennedy Space Center, which is a connection to the NASA and the Science Club. So, Ms. Panache.
Okay. So if you remember the NASA, it's a Help Society. So the kids had to choose something that they wanted to work on that would help society in some way. You will be getting some presentations that will be sent to you. I thought it was at the middle school, so therefore we have it all set up over there. But anyway, so look, when you're retiring, it's like, whoa. Anyway, so I do want to say before we start with it, I just am so appreciative of the fact that you allowed us to do this. And it was a risk. It went fantastic both times except for the snowstorm the first year. But other than that, the kids were amazing. The parents were really supportive. You guys have just seriously meant a difference to these kids because they got to do something that they normally wouldn't have been able to do. Because some of the things that they got to participate in is only open for schools. So, okay. So anyway, so on that being said, and will always be your biggest cheerleader because I think it's the most amazing school district. Very hard to leave. Very hard to leave the children because it is, Silver Lake is to me one of the best schools in the area. So I just had to put all that in there. All right, so would you like to start, Miss Sarah?
Sure.
Would your group like to start? I'm right up here. Right there's fine.
Okay.
So explain to them what started this whole thing, like why you chose this.
Right, yeah. So our invention is called the EpiCase, and what it is it's an EpiPen that is attached to a phone case. Realistically, it would be more like inside of the actual design of the casing, but obviously we didn't have the resources to do that. Why we came up with this idea is because we realized that there are a lot of children with allergies who don't always carry around like a handbag or a purse of their own, you know, when they go out with their friends. Young children really don't have those kinds of things to keep with them. So we decided that instead it would be really easy and convenient to make an EpiPen more accessible by incorporating it into the design of a phone case. Our idea was that there would be a lot of different styles and designs to fit multiple different phones, and that it would work as a functioning EpiPen.
But we would add different colors to the phone case and make it like really good for like every person to use. These are a little bulky and big.
And the casing would be thermal, so it wouldn't overheat. Because sometimes when you bring it up to the heat, they don't really work as well.
And one of the first things, they had to write a proposal to me, and then I had to accept it. And one of the things that they said was, everybody carries their cell phone, and therefore, we wouldn't have to worry if you fumbling in a backpack, stuff like that. And it really made a lot of sense. So that was our first one. Thank you, ladies.
Hello. We thought of the Flux chair, which was basically just a capsule which would act like a bed.
Okay, so our idea was a type of furniture that acts like a chair, so you can sit in it, and it can also act as a bed, and it can conform to your body and be able to put like pressure on certain parts of your body to support it. So it's much better than conventional mattresses, as conventional mattresses can be not extremely effective in keeping your things in alignment, like your spine. And that was our design of it.
Yeah. So we just kind of thought of that because I know as me, it's hard to go to bed sometimes. So that would most likely make it more comfortable. So yeah, that's what.
Hello, I'm Ben.
I'm Wes.
I'm Matt.
And we are the Atomic Space Monkeys with the invention of the Astro Sleeve. With our invention to improve space travel and the future of our society, we present to you the Astro Sleeve. The Astro Sleeve is an easy-to-wear armband designed to aid those who are unable to speak. Mute people will be able to communicate more easily to others, and if they so choose, be able to work in space. We are the Atomic Space Monkeys, and we want everyone to have an equal opportunity at achieving their dreams.
It's a key. What does it look like? It's a keyboard with speakers and a screen that wraps around your arm like a shooting sleeve in basketball. And what does it do? When you type in a word on the keyboard, it shows what you have typed in on a small screen at the bottom of the keyboard. And you can click the speak button, and the speakers on the keyboard will say what you typed.
It can also help in space. Astronauts that are mute can be hired by space companies like NASA and SpaceX. Astronaut suits can have a keyboard like this attached to their spacesuits so that they can speak to other astronauts. When they have their helmets on, the keyboard could be hooked up to the intercoms. So when the mute astronaut could type things on the sleeve, the other astronauts could hear the computer voice through the intercoms. Also, they could look at the screen and sleeve and see what the mute astronaut has typed.
That's our last group.
Okay, so our invention was a car vibration system for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. So basically, we had motion sensors around the car on the outside that can detect moving cars, trees, and can detect sirens from emergency vehicles. We thought this idea would be good for anyone who's deaf or hard of hearing, or basically anyone, because a lot of people don't really pay attention to everything, and it would probably prevent a lot of crashes and help emergency vehicles go by faster.
And the estimated cost to have it into your car would be around $2,000.
All right. Thank you very much for allowing us to have that experience. It was perfect for the kids. And as I said, it didn't all have to be around space, but it had to be how do you help society? And NASA sponsors us every year. When we were down in Florida, we talked to the astronaut about the projects, and they were very impressed with what was going on and what they've come up with. And they did a great job. I'm just so proud of them.
Hey, kids, come back closer over here so we can ask you questions and talk to you for a minute. As a fellow science teacher, I just wanted to comment on each one of your designs and ideas are applicable today. As you were describing how they would improve lives of others, I was already thinking of other ways they could be implemented into the workplace and into the marketplace. You guys all have marketable ideas right now, standing in front of us today. And you know, there's really three things you need when you're looking at what you want to do when you grow up. And one is to make some money, another is to make a difference, and another one is to enjoy what you're doing. And I can tell right now that you enjoyed what you did, and all of those projects would make a huge difference in the world. So I'm hoping you can make some money with these skills someday in the future, but you guys are off to a great start. Your public speaking skills are to be commended. To come in front of a group of adults that you've never met before and to speak as eloquently as you did tonight. I want to buy your products right now. You did a great job. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming into school the last day of school.
Yeah.
Came back.
Yeah.
That's dedication. That is dedication. Thank you.
I also want to say thank you to Kathy Benash. She's retiring. It's teachers like you, and we have some great teachers in these schools that makes all the difference. I think, that the opportunities that these kids get in the middle school are a lot more than I did when I was growing up. So thank you for everything that you've done, and good luck in the next chapter in your life.
Thank you. But it's, these are my kids, and they just, to see them, what they came up with and the ideas that they came up with, it's so rewarding as a teacher. And because you're a science teacher also, it's like when they take that idea and just expand it without I didn't help them in any way. When they do that on their own, I am very happy with, as I retire, that these kids are going to eventually take care of us. They're the rulers of the world because they're amazing, amazing children. So thank you all. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right, we ready?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let them get back to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want one of those chairs.
I just want to say that, normally, obviously, I'd wait till the principals, say so, and I'd commend them. But I do commend them exactly for what Kathy said, for their creativity and what they did, and for Kathy's creativity as a teacher, and what they bring to the classroom, they bring to life, and they do it hands-on, and they do it all year. I mean, the consistent effort that they show, just awesome. And some of the ideas, to really help. We see as principals, as administrators, as teachers, students struggling with the idea of just the phone case, what a creative thought that would really help and support, kids that we see every day. So, and I could talk about each one of them and what they've done. So, but I do want to say that. So, thank you guys for your time. Thanks for their time too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to convene to the portion of our meeting where the Union 31 needs to be called to order, but I believe Union 31 also needs to reorder tonight as well.
That is correct. So I would like to call to order Superintendency Union 31. I would like to take nominations from the floor for chair.
Nominate Mike Antone.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? All in favor? You can't vote, Paul?
No, I can't.
I support?
Yes. Anyway.
Congratulations, Mike.
I'm teasing you. You know that, right?
So if you'd like to call the union meeting to order, Mike?
I'd like to call the June 13th, uni meeting to order.
And John, since we have a quorum for Dennett School Committee, would you like to call the Dennett?
If I could make a suggestion, if we don't actually vote as a school committee, we'd have Union 31 and vote as that, because otherwise we have to do Clinton School Committee meeting
As
minutes.
separate, okay.
And Lisa and I spoke about this earlier,
We're all
trying to figure out the logic of that. Is that okay with everybody?
I love your logic.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Glenn Kuchar, the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, back to the table. Welcome, Glenn. Thanks for coming back. And Glenn, Laura did put together a packet for us with the data from the survey, so if you and Laura want to tag team off of some of the results, maybe before we get into the actual product? Or do you think that makes some sense?
All right, so it's in your packet. Just because I'm a data nerd, I asked Glenn to send me along the data and see what I could pull out of it. I think one of the things that when you're looking at data and you have sort of open-ended questions that people ask, it's always really interesting to read through what people have to say, but it's really hard to put that into a sort of a capsule. I think my thought was that since tonight we're really talking about how are we going to put out to the world that we're looking for a new superintendent, that the two questions that seemed the most applicable, there was one about select the 5 most significant current or future issues that the new superintendent will need to address, and then the other one was about the top 5 skills and ability of job applicants that are most important to our schools. And one of the things that I wanted to do with the data is I wanted to break it out by the type of respondent, because as we talked about last time, different people have sort of different views of what a superintendent is and what a superintendent does. And so it's important to sort of consider those viewpoints. But we also did have like a lot more parents than students responding. So it's just important to look to see. So I broke out, what I did is I gave the top 5 responses in each of the type categories. So we look in this packet here. The cover of this packet actually, I like Wordle. So what I did is I took all the responses about, the open-ended responses about the most important issue facing the next superintendent, and I pasted that into Wordle, and I made this little thing just so we could sort of see what kinds of things are people saying are important moving forward with the superintendent. So rather than bringing you, 200 to 300 responses from different people, a lot of which actually needed some cleanup because there were names in there, and so it just seemed like for now the most useful thing would be to just kind of let's look and see what what people are saying, what issues are we going to be facing, and what skills and abilities should we be looking for. So I think you can take a look through the different categories, and you can just sort of see that the things that are most important. There were some things that came up with every group of respondents. So educational leadership skills, obviously, really important in all areas. Interestingly, there are some groups that believe that curriculum development and instruction are really the most important thing, and then, with some, not so much, so that's something we can talk about. Financial management, obviously, another really strong thread that we saw come up in all of the groups. So I won't go through that in too much detail because you have it in front of you, but in terms of skills and abilities, I did find there was some overlap between the answers for both of these, so like, I forget which one, but like communication skills I think was in both questions. But communication skills, obviously really important ability. I think we've talked about that. Understanding and recognizing good teaching. Obviously, another important one, experience with development of budget. I think these are all things that we know are important, but it's nice to see that the stakeholders, within all of our districts are seeing the same things and looking for the same things that we are. So, just a really quick summary of the data. Obviously, there were more questions in there that were open-ended, but it's, again, hard to sort of figure out the best way to document that, to share. I do think one of the things that I would like to do is, one of the questions was asking people for questions that we could use when interviewing candidates. And so I think, we'll put that together as a list and maybe share that. And, when we get closer to talking about interviewing, we could come up with maybe pull some questions from that list.
I had access to the raw data, and the amount of work that Laura put into this to boil it down to 2 pages and digestible information is superb. Well done. I really appreciate it. And again, this is something that can guide us over the summer as we have some time to digest the whole process and where we're going, in combination with some of those suggested questions from our constituents that we can really use with that preliminary screening team going through our pool of applicants as they start to come in, and we start to weed them down to our finalists that would then come before the greater committees for final approval and vetting. So thank you very much, Laura, for all that work. Are there any questions for Laura at this point? It's over to you, Mr. Kuchar.
Chairman, what we provided to you tonight is a mock-up of a potential piece of promotional literature that would be distributed to the university candidates, probably electronically, but we have the capacity to produce these in-house, so we can produce hard copies for those of you who would like to have some hard copies in order to share. This is not a finished draft, but because of the ability to make changes quickly with our technology, we can make changes instantly to this. This isn't like the old days where you had to go back to the printer and negotiate the changes. This is very easy to change. The things that I would call your attention to, based on the information that Tilton has provided to you, I think you may find the selection criteria should probably be modified to include some of the priorities that your survey responders have indicated. Probably a higher focus or an additional focus on curriculum and instruction, maybe a little more refinement around the question of leadership and leadership skills, just to develop some consistency with what your constituents are telling you versus what you've done in the past when you didn't have that data to do that. But otherwise, I would ask you to pay attention to the timeline. It would be our intent to begin the search the week before Labor Day and get the notices out for the position. A heads up that it's coming probably in the next couple of weeks. Maybe a reminder in the summer, and then a full-fledged promotion of the search and vacancy to the broader universe of candidates. And the timetable was designed to have you able to get a new superintendent starting in January. Now, that requires movement. It may require us to push your search committee and the school committee to get this done. But we believe the timetable that we've laid out for you is enough to give you plenty of flexibility as you move forward to meet the deadline. If you made an appointment at the end of November, which is reasonable, you could allow a candidate to give notice to another district and get here by January or February. Or to work with some type of transition leadership to be here in place.
Good question for Mr. Kuchar.
My question revolves around with our schedule of school committee meetings that have been approved for next year. Will that give us enough time?
We are most likely going to be calling additional
December. Okay.
Meetings.
That's my question.
Just for the purpose of the superintendent's search.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
So those additional meetings would be for the smaller subcommittee, correct?
Well, the preliminary screening committee will have to meet even more extensively in the earlier portion of the fall. And then as we get to the finalists, They'll have to do some site visits, and then we will have to interview them in open session. So we will have to have a few meetings with the union and with the district present to go forward with that and make a final appointment. So there will be additional meetings in the late fall for all of our committees leading up to this. And those of you who are in the preliminary screenings will have even more meetings in September, beginning of October to vet the semifinalists. Paul?
Question, I'm looking at the end of the timeline versus the holidays and vacation breaks. In particular, if our selection ended up being somebody who perhaps is already in the role, what is the typical, is it a 2-week notice, 30-day notice versus the vacation, the holidays? Does that impact us at all here?
Well, the one holiday that would impact you might be Thanksgiving, but the responsibility of the school committee would be at some point between the 21st of October and the week after Thanksgiving to get your candidates interviewed by the school committee, do your visiting to the districts and have the candidates visit here, and then set a date for a meeting in which to take a deliberation, to have a deliberation and a vote. So I see this as doable because it's only Thanksgiving that gets in the way, and you can always do this at the week after Thanksgiving before the winter holiday season starts to draw your attention away. If you were looking at trying to get a vote taken the week before Christmas, that's probably not going to be.
Right, no, I apologize. I'm just wondering if we have enough time. For instance, if we select a candidate the week of the 25th, the school committee votes, the union votes, and we offer the position to somebody, that's giving them enough time to give notice and leave their district.
So their obligation to the district, they may be leaving.
Yes.
Correct.
So, that's correct. A sitting superintendent might be required to give anywhere from a month to 3 to 6 months notice, depending upon whether backup leadership in the sending district is in place. So if I'm a superintendent and I have an assistant superintendent who's being groomed, that transition could take place, that transition could take place very quick. I could leave in a month, the person who's ready to take over could just take over. If there is nobody in my district, it might take me 3 months to disengage from the district where I am, unless the district was able to put together a temporary transition leadership at that place. So you may need to have a contingency to have someone on hand who could steer the ship for a couple of months if necessary.
Now, ideally, our plan is to have Joy utilize her last month on board, cross-training, getting the new superintendent acclimated. If we were faced with the situation where our candidate had to disengage over the period of 2 or 3 months, we're going to miss that opportunity.
Not necessarily. The candidates who are coming can often share their time, spending time in their own district and time in the new district to overlap.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, Paula, working with Glenn and Jim Hardy, my timeline was a little bit more aggressive, but they've done this far more times than I have. I would love to aim for before Thanksgiving to make our announcement through our superintendent, but that's going to be on us moving quickly through the process, but not in such a reckless way that we make missteps along the way also.
If I may, the only date on this timetable that is immutable, that you cannot change, is the closing date for your applications. Everybody needs to have their applications in by a fixed time. After that, if the search committee can move quickly and the school committee can move quickly, you can move your time frame up.
Okay.
It's a matter of how much process you need to have and how much process you want to have process you let slow you down.
Okay. So Mr. Chair, just one question on that, the September 28th, 7th deadline. Do we need to leave it open for 3 full months?
We don't.
We could.
We need to leave it open for a certain amount of time in
Sure.
September to allow people to get back into district, get their schools running, and have time to pay attention to something else. You know, our posting for the position. We could be a little bit more aggressive with that, but I wouldn't go too close to the beginning of September that day.
What's the suggested posting date for the position?
The official formal posting date would probably be the week before Labor Day. But we could open up the position as early as you wish and invite people to submit applications during the summer. It's just, nobody's paying attention in the summertime. Even candidates.
Right, and as Glenn mentioned at the last meeting, the vast majority of applications come in the last week, and a substantial amount come in on the last day that the deadline is actually on. So having it open over the summer would just be hanging out there for anybody who might be paying attention.
That is, but if you wanted to speed it up, if you wanted to move the starting date a week earlier, you could certainly do that. That gives everybody sort of 3 weeks back to school to do this, but the application process requires candidates to get references, to get transcripts, to prepare their material, and it takes some time, but they'll have the whole summer to get ready for that, so that date could be moved up if you wish.
Yeah, I think my preference would be not to put it on the 27th, but to put it as soon as even the 16th, which would be the Monday. Close of business Monday, which gives them 2 full weeks, and then to post the job in early August and give people notice. They're not necessarily going to do it if they're on vacation, but it gives them the notice to start to pull things together, and then it gives them 2 or 3 full weeks depending on what their district start date is, if it's pre or post Labor Day, that they're sort of back at work, being able to know that this is part of what they're going to have to do if they want to do it. I just think getting that almost 2 weeks is going to help in being able to pull that back and being able to sort of address the concerns that others have been expressing here, that we don't give them enough time to be able to successfully get someone in here if they accept, and spend some time with.
Before we get too many suggestions going on, and I don't want to do this as a formal vote, more as a straw poll, for both the union, Mike, if you don't mind, and the region. You're okay. Would people feel comfortable with moving the deadline date for submission of applications to the 16th, which is a Monday? Anybody have a strong opposition to that? Okay, so we'll hold that, and we'll vote all of the changes at the end. Paula, do you want to look at being a little more aggressive when the school committee votes to appoint the superintendent date away from the 25th?
Would we do it at a school committee meeting? I mean, obviously we would. But when, I know, do we have one already scheduled? Would it make sense to put it in with that?
like this.
Oh, right.
He was saying we're going to be adding more.
Probably going to be a
Right.
just to deal with this, right?
Well, I was just thinking if we had one, if there was one scheduled that we could work with, that might make it easier for folks.
Would it make sense to pull that back 2 weeks? So whatever, 25th to the 11th.
Can those dates be changed in the future, or once they're
Well, like Glenn said,
printed, they're
the
kind
only
of
one that we really have to hold firm to
the first one?
is the application deadline, and the one that we want to hold firm to is the appointment date.
Yes.
And we're imposing that on ourselves, we can change that.
Right.
I think there's so many factors with the amount of candidates that we might receive.
So maybe we don't want to change too many numbers, and we just want to act more aggressively as we get closer to that.
And if we're closing in on a decision and we want to then have, what do we need, 48 hours notice for a meeting? Right, so for the first week of November, we pretty much know what we want, then
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Good.
Okay. Anyone else?
One of the things that will help you do this, prior to the 16th, there would be an orientation for everyone involved in the search committee. Then the search committee, when it's together, can schedule expediting its work and get it done as quickly as possible without compromising diligence. Because as I said, the rest of this timetable is only to give you a sense of where you need to be at some point. If you set your closing date at the 16th, everything else can be changed. No one's going to care, certainly not the candidates. And the public isn't concerned about your internal timetable. They're concerned with seeing somebody appointed.
But there's something about having it in writing in a document that I think will help all of us. So if we feel like we want to do it sooner, even though I know with this we still can do it sooner, I would rather see us put it on the document.
We move everything up, we move
Moving
everything back a
everything
week.
up a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Move everything back a week.
Leslie Ann?
Just as a matter of sort of, you know, why we're trying to do this. I mean, on one end, we really want to get qualified candidates. On the other end, we really, I think, should prioritize having overlap with the current superintendent. So if we can push that up a little bit, like Laura suggested, I think that's what we should do.
So the week of September 23rd for the semifinalists being selected. The interviews for the semifinalists taking place between October 1st and October 11th. And then site visits and finalist interviews would be, site visit and finalist interviews would then be moved from October 14th through whatever point in November you wanted to. I'm embarrassed to tell you, I have an academic calendar here, and it only goes to the first week in October.
November 8th.
The 8th is going to be conference, I believe, right? Is that conference?
Yeah.
Conference.
Yeah, so you could get your interviews done by the 8th of November, or the 1st of November, if that was.
Yeah, just to level set, I've had multiple school committee members, faculty, staff, parents inquire about helping out when we get to that stage of doing site visits and having the candidates come here to do the visits. We'll be staffed. All are welcome at that point to participate at some level. We will have to be careful about how many of us are on any particular team. I've already talked to building principals as well about contacting their PTOs and their CASAs to have parents come in. So all stakeholders will get some FaceTime, and then we can debrief with them at our leisure. But all of those people are already in place and ready to go. And we do have a very motivated pre-selection team already in place, Glenn, just so you know that as well. Matter of fact, 2 of the municipal members are in the audience tonight. And I'm happy to see you. Thank you for coming.
And you look to make a decision the week of the 17th of November?
Would be pretty good. That'll give 6 weeks notice for everybody.
18th?
What are you looking at, Laura?
Yeah, the 18th.
Is the 18th
It's Monday.
Thursday?
No, it's a Monday. It's a week before the one that's in here.
So we'll aim for an announcement on the 18th.
This was mentioned. The week of November 4th through 8th is our state convention. So it'll get a little hectic for us, but we can accommodate the schedule.
Just bring them to conference.
Yeah, I think we can work around that, Glenn.
Oh, is that's the joint conference?
Yeah.
Okay, so some superintendents if they're sitting superintendents, would be.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that won't, the candidates won't be affected by that.
Okay.
If they, when you're scheduling an interview for the superintendency, those calls are always returned and the candidates are always available.
Well said. Can I also have a sign of authorization for Glenn to make some of the changes in the selection criteria to reflect the data from Laura's compilation survey results for curriculum, design and instruction, and for communication?
So moved.
Paul?
Can I ask just one question? And I apologize, I missed the early part of our last meeting where you really drilled into a lot of this. How does the criteria match up to our superintendent evaluation? Because our criteria really should be very similar in a lot of ways to what we're evaluating our superintendent on. And I didn't do a cross-reference, I just, before we say, let's...
Right, and I think, to piggyback on that, it has experience in school facility planning. I don't know that school facility planning was one of the choices.
Right.
So, like, whether to keep it or don't keep it.
That came from us, I believe, with
Right.
how important buildings and grounds safety.
Right, and I'm not saying don't put it in there, but I'm just saying like that didn't come, that's not coming from the data because I don't think that was an option.
Right. But we have
But the data-
to reflect what
The data's to
But I think
inform.
with the evaluation, Paula, the goals, the goals are set by the superintendent, but you're talking about the standards, like the different
state
standards,
Well,
within the
maybe
evaluation.
talking about a little bit of both, but, I mean, this is just to give a flavor to the candidate.
It
It's,
It's not gonna
it
matter.
is what it is, but I don't think we can not take not factor in, what do we evaluate our superintendent on at the end of every year?
Well, that's why curriculum and instruction is important to be added, and further explanation of what your expectations are for communication skills. And what was the third thing that you mentioned? Was it?
The facilities was already in there, right? And it was,
Oh, yeah, one of our goals, we care about.
you said something about team leadership.
They should.
Okay.
John, did you have your hand up?
No, I was just going to say that, because adding those is important, even though we're not looking for someone to be all about curriculum, because there's a lot of things we're looking for. Because right now, as it reads, you're looking for an administrator solely. Just if you look at those bullet points, that's just business administration, and yet we want that education piece there too. So I think it's very important to add what Glenn was planning to add.
So I'm just going to kind of add to that. So curriculum development and instruction to me is not important in a superintendent. I know it is to the current students, parents of students, and residents of the town. But look at the employees of the school. They know the superintendent isn't really doing curriculum development and instruction. I mean, maybe they do, but we have curriculum coordinators, we have professionals, we have a team. So to me, obviously, if other people think it's important, if we're going to do it because parents or students or other people are saying it, that's fine. But for me, as a school committee member, I don't think it needs to be in the selection criteria, but that's just me.
I think we talked about last time, I think the bottom line is that the selection criteria, not that they're not important, but they're, the people that are interested in superintendencies are going to be interested or not interested based on location, salary, and it's going to take a visit, an interview, a callback in order to decide if there's a connection. So, I don't know that we need to wordsmith the criteria too much. I guess my question is, if we've got the criteria in here, then does that then become some kind of a rubric that we're evaluating all the candidates against? Like, are we actually evaluating them against these criteria, or is this just bullet points to go?
That was going to
in
be
a
my
brochure?
exact question. If these aren't selection criteria, then they should not be called selection criteria. They maybe should be called, expected experience or desired leadership skills or something. But if I agree with, when I hire people, the selection criteria are the things that we have to check off. Do they have this? Do they have that? Do they meet this? I just think if they're not going to be selection criteria, they shouldn't be called it. Or if it's not going to be the rubric, that shouldn't be titled that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Are all of you going to be looking for these 5 bullets in the person who comes before us to be our next superintendent?
Well, I guess that's the question, is how, presumably we're going to get some guidance on how to look at these applicants that come in, those of us that are going to do that. So how, we'll get some guidance on what to be looking for. So, are we looking for these things? Will there be more added to those things? Is there something else that we're looking for? Is it really just based on sort of, oh, I like this one, I don't like that one? I don't know how we'll go about it.
We would probably insert something related to leadership, team leadership and supervision of staff who are responsible for some of the key criteria that your responders indicated. So the superintendent wouldn't necessarily be doing the curriculum development, but would be evaluating and hiring and evaluating the people who do the curriculum development. So those are where your questions might want to be directed. What's your experience here? How does that inform your hiring decisions? How does it inform your supervisory skills or the skills that you look for in others?
Yes.
We're looking for a CEO.
Well,
But I think you're looking for a CEO, but if you just look at it as written, then that could be someone who runs a company, not someone who's ever been in education, just based on what we have here. And so I think what you want is and Eric, to your point, those are the key skills, but you want that familiarity with these other items to help inform this. And so I think that's really a good way to do that, is to put it in that way. And on the point of, do they have to have everything of these, and it's going to depend on the candidate. It's unlikely that you find someone who is 100% in every category. And so it's going to base on, what do you think they can learn? What do you think they bring maybe that's extra that isn't listed here that we don't get from a different candidate?
On that point, educational leadership skills is touched on in each one of these. So that would, I think, cover the CEO piece, that it's about education.
Right.
Leading educators.
All right, so I'm going to get us bogged down again, so I'm going to stop us and reflect on what Glenn said a moment ago about adding another bullet in there that just talks about the supervision and evaluation of those implementing the curriculum design and instruction. Do you think that would round out the bullets that we added that in?
Jason, at the last meeting, you talked about looking at changes within the administration and how things are set up. With that, you're looking at that. How much of that is going to change the role of the superintendent? Are you going to be proposing to make changes for assistant superintendent and the shifting of work? And will the new superintendent then be doing something different than what Joy's been doing?
So I, as an individual, am going to bring before the committee and before the union just some ideas of different structures for central office administration. What the committees choose to do with that is incumbent upon them. Mine, it'll just be a single person bringing up some ideas. The superintendency would change under some of the formulations that I've been playing with and I've been seeing in other districts working well, that I'll bring forward to you. But a lot of them would leave our superintendent pretty much in a similar position that we currently find them. So that depends on what the committees do with the information I bring forth. But I do have a couple different tested central administration formulations that I'll be bringing forth to us. I was waiting to do that until after we actually have a new seated superintendent, because I think we need to work with that seated superintendent. This is not just a school committee decision. This is going to have to be something that person is also comfortable with the idea of working with. So I don't think we can use that as part of our debate tonight of how that might look in the future.
Okay.
Just a comment / question about this document. I hear us saying, oh, well, we don't need to have it printed and, have hundreds of copies zooming around. But if that's the case, I'm trying to look, I'm looking at this thinking, okay, that's not a regular size piece of paper. So if someone gets it as an attachment or sees it and downloads it from somewhere, they can't, it's going to be hard to print. And it's sort of set up as something that you fold. So I'm just wondering, and maybe this is getting too much into the weeds, but I'm just kind of wondering, why are we creating a document that's intended to be printed on a certain size paper and folded if we're not printing it?
Well, the digital copies, if you download them from MASC's website, come out looking a little bit differently. The formatting stays attractive and presentable, but looks a little bit different.
Okay, so it would be something that could be printed on a regular piece of paper?
Yes, very often, I go to the Twitter feed and I click on the different
This is actually printed on an 8x11 inch sheet.
Oh, okay.
And then expanded by the printer to print on this type of paper. Only because it's larger print and it's easier.
Okay.
And we-
You know, I just,
We did allocate some money when we were talking about this search for printing. But we talked about at the last meeting, how we thought if we could avoid that cost, if it didn't make sense, that would be some savings to the districts moving forward as well. We allocated up to $2,500 as we were planning out to spend of that 15 to printing costs. So we potentially could save $2,500 of the $15,000 we allocated for this process just by not printing or reducing the amount we print.
I just want to make sure if somebody downloaded it, they can print it.
They can.
So just with the additions that we are suggesting in that selection criteria section going back, I think it probably should be, to be productive, renamed something like knowledge, skills, and abilities, like KSAs, because that's sort of really what it is, and just a suggestion, it's really not selection criteria.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so I see some consensus. Can you say again, knowledge, skills, and?
Abilities, KSAs,
So,
pretty standard.
Selection criteria should be knowledge, skills,
Skills and abilities.
and abilities.
You know this well, don't you?
I do, government.
Federal government.
I did do local.
Yeah.
New acronym for me.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any strong objections to that idea? Renaming the selection criteria, knowledge, skills, and abilities. All right, thank you, let's stand for that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry if this is out of order. Under the school district, there's just a couple of errors there. It says that there's 5 elementary principals. There's 4. Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was something that needed to be voted on, the changes. This is official documents.
Couple of secret
And
schools.
then principal, PAL.
Yeah, the middle school principal needs an L on the end of it, I think.
Any other editorial?
Yes.
That's good catches. We want it to be accurate. We don't want to send something out because we're going to be embarrassed.
Missing a school.
Okay, so let's just go over some of the changes we've made so far. We've changed the deadline to September 16th. We would like an announcement around November 18th. We want to change selection criteria to knowledge, skills, and abilities, and add a bullet about the supervision and evaluation of those. Can you say it, John, again? The supervision and evaluation of individuals responsible for curriculum design and instruction.
Yep.
A point of clarification, it's, Leslie Ann, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's knowledge, comma, skills, and abilities.
Yeah.
All right.
I see, wait a minute, this is a big issue now with grammarians. Knowledge, comma, skills, comma.
My crazy math.
Just one comma.
in front of the end or not?
Just one comma.
I just wanted to separate knowledge, skills. is
There
not
are
one
people
word.
who will fight over that.
Knowledge, comma, skills, and abilities.
Yeah.
So we'll keep the second comma out, is that?
What is that called?
I do have
We should put experience
Isn't that
with it.
called a special comment?
I do too. All right.
Put the comment.
Were there any other substantive changes or comments that anybody needs to make?
I'm going to come back to the format. I mean, it's one thing to deliver an electronic document that you think people are going to print, but increasingly people don't even print them. So if you pull it up and it looks like that, on your screen.
It doesn't.
It should be a 6-page, it should be page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5,
It comes up as an attractive PDF.
Okay. Because that's how I think most people will look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, so
then why,
I've
so why,
clicked on a few
okay.
of them.
Then why do we have this? Like, I guess.
This is an option for us to print. We would trim the top and the bottom off, and we would have physical brochures that we could send out or have available at central office.
Right.
It's just an option.
Just so that you know, about a third of districts use the big format, 2/3 use the 8.5 by 11 when they print.
Right.
But a growing number of people are only using the online version where you can set your own size to your screen.
Yeah. I'm very much in favor of a pretty PDF. So, great.
As am I. We don't all have computer screens in front of us tonight, so this was the easiest way to show you some of the information that we put together. This was between Joy, Glenn, and myself, just trying to put together all the suggestions from our last meeting together. And that's why we came before you tonight, to make sure that we got it right and we met your requirements and what you hope the document to say and represent before we send it out to the public.
If you do elect to mail them, either size works. We have distribution envelopes that work with whatever size you like. And some people find the threefold can be a little too condensed if it's 8.5 by 11 to get all the information that they want in.
So is this going to go to a English teacher or a copywriting editor? Because it needs some work, text-wise, yes?
This is not the final document. This was the ideas.
Okay, great, perfect.
Yeah.
In terms of the application, like I see the application process in here. I'm just wondering, like, people, like it gets posted and then they download this and they follow, the process in here, or do they?
You download the application too.
Okay, so there's an application.
There's an electronic application that you can complete online,
And then they submit that.
and that can be submitted.
And then we get that back in electronic form, hard copy, both?
Well, we could get it either way. Jim Harvey could print them up for us and bring them to the orientation meeting when he's meeting with the preliminary screening team. I'm sure he could pack it out to the preliminary screening team as well. Again, that's where we're going to have to make sure that the whole school committee does not have access to that first batch of data. According to the rules set forth by the State Ethics Commission, we can't have a quorum of any of our school committees, the union, in any capacity. Receive those documents or they become public record, and we have to have open meetings and declare minutes from them. So be very careful in that regard. But Jim would be able to email them to the preliminary screening team and bring hard copies when he did his orientation. Are there any other questions? Mike?
So Jim will screen out all the stuff we don't want.
Yeah, Jim can do that for us, make sure that we're not spending time.
We're tight on time, so.
Yes. People who don't meet the minimums won't come into the preliminary files.
Do we want to add to the timeline what week we want that preliminary orientation meeting?
I think that would be for our knowledge, not for the candidates' knowledge.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Right.
Yeah, agreed, yeah.
All right, so, are there any further comments, questions? Then I would appreciate from the region a motion to accept the amendments and going through the English teacher editorial process one more time. So, thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion from the region? All those in favor of approving the packet? Any opposed, abstentions? So it's unanimous on the region side. Mike?
Can I get the decision on the union side for the edits to the document that Jason had stated earlier?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and just for the 2 items on the timeline that we have to hold firm to, I'll accept the motion to accept September 16th as our deadline for receiving the applications, and January 1st is our start date for the new superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion for the deadline of September 16th and a start date of January 1st, 2020?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I believe I heard said by the committee you would like us to have this out as soon as we can, and then a reminder push right after Labor Day to remind candidates that this is out there. Anybody on the committee feel like we need to have a vote on the date where we open up the position, or are you comfortable with Glenn, Jim, and myself working that through?
Comfortable with that?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lucci.
Changes probably by Monday.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Mike, if you would have any other business of the union?
A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming tonight and being with us.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor? All right. Recess. We call the meeting back to order. Thank you, everyone. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's any public participation for this evening. That's right, Carl.
Carl Pike from Kingston. I'd just like to take a quick minute to say that I was fortunate enough to attend both the high school award ceremony and the high school graduation. And I'd like to thank this school committee for the support and the leadership that they provide to our school systems. I thought that both of those occurrences, the award ceremony, the graduation, was very well done. And I think that a lot of times we hear people concerned about the funds that we spend on education. Well, there's 2 examples where we see what a great job we're doing. And I, for one, say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other public participation this evening? All right, seeing none, move on to the approval of the minutes from our May 23rd, 2019 regular session.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion or amendments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And now on to our school business director, Christine.
Thank you. This evening, as you know, we're getting close to the very end of the year. Every day we're checking balances, we're checking to see where we're going to fall for the end of the year. We will have a surplus in our budget, a small surplus. We will also have a surplus from our revenues. I'm not ready to say what that final number is because we have not received all of our final revenues. But almost everything is on target to at least meet, if not exceed, our expectations. So in just a few short weeks, we will have those final balances.
Any questions for Christine? In your packet tonight, I wrote an article. It was an editorial by our state auditor, Sir Zambon, who I mentioned during Christine's presentation last meeting, talking about the state paying for foster kids' education. So districts aren't trying to chase the dollars for those students. The dollars should just follow those children naturally from the state level. I did reach out to her on her behalf, as you guys asked me to do, and I'm working with her on homeless transportation and schooling costs as well, and whether or not the state should be the payee of that as well. So districts don't have to try and wrangle who's responsible for our homeless students. So thank you for that that push to reach out. She's been a pleasure to work with so far, so thank you. On to our superintendent, Joy.
Thank you. I have to tell you, this time of year is incredibly wonderful, crazy, and nonstop. And both the principals, it was the last day of school today. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. So Jim came in just to be part of Kathy Banash's presentation, but we did not ask him to stay. Thank you, Carl, for acknowledging graduation. It was just a really, really great day. It was my last graduation, so I had hoped to try to do something special for the kids. What I didn't know was the young man who was introducing me had done something really special for me, and I was just absolutely floored. So I think I had mentioned Joe Mirasola had come over, and he had a cup of tea, and we really had a wonderful time. And I just thoroughly enjoyed him, and it was really pretty special. And he was kind enough, which just sort of blew me away, that he wanted to make a certificate for me. And he actually did and designed my diploma. And he actually did this all himself, which I will show, and I'm extremely proud of. So this diploma is given to Joy Blackwood for successfully completing her time at Silver Lake Regional School District. And he signed it because he was giving himself the authority, so, which I thought was pretty brilliant. So I just thought you might like to see my diploma because it was pretty special to me. What also happened, and I have always considered myself having a good sense of humor, so I guess it's always good to strike first. I had wanted to do something special for the class. So there's a song by Jason Mraz called Have It All. And Jason and Paula and Leslie Ann, who were at graduation, were brave enough and sat up on stage. And I had asked the teachers, any teachers that were attending graduation, if they would be willing to come up and sing with me. I don't sing, by the way, so at least I was hoping I wasn't singing. And, on stage to sing it to the students. So the teachers and I had one afternoon after school practice. We sang it through twice. So, I mean, pretty limited practice to say the least. And the risers were right in front of the stage. And when the students were performing, there were stands with microphones on them. So I made a poor assumption that those stands with the microphones on them would maintain the microphones that were on them. Therefore, when the teachers came up, the microphones would be turned on and you would hear the teacher singing who had talent, as opposed to the superintendent who had the microphone in front of her with no talent. Much to my later knowledge that I learned, there's no microphone for the teachers singing. The only live microphone was, Carl's even looking at me, thank you, Carl. The only live microphone was the one I was singing into. And I was not aware of that, and I was having a wonderful time up on stage, hiding behind, I thought, the teachers, without anyone hearing the microphone that I was unaware was turned on. So, yeah, it was pretty special. So,
Go out with a bang.
I really went out with a bang. So I sang karaoke to over 1,000 people unintentionally, but you have to have a sense of humor in life, right? So
And I will admit that 12 views on the YouTube channel.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful. I really can't sing.
No, if there is any, the lyrics to the song itself, when Joy sent it out and I read through the lyrics of the song, the message that she wanted to send to the kids contained in that song is just encapsulating of her entire career in education. And I think that you singing to those students on their final day here was poetic.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah. I was trying to do something brave and out of my comfort zone, and boy, did I ever. Yes. But it did seem to be well received, so it was really a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the kids taking the time to make my diploma, which was great. And then I also bought a yearbook for those of you who didn't get to see them, because they did a really gorgeous job this year with that. On It's been a really busy week this week. I don't remember what night. It was whatever night, the same night as Kingston Intermediate School graduation. This is Tuesday. The Pathways graduation. In your last packet, we sent everybody an invitation. I'm not sure, I don't believe anybody was able to make it. I didn't see anyone there. It was, Christina and I actually both went. It was one of the most amazing nights. I was astounded. Our Pathways program is a program we started this year for our 18 to 22-year-old population. I could not believe the turnout. Every business that has our students working in them was present and were recognized. All the students were present and recognized. All the parents were there. I would say there were 40-ish people.
I was thinking 50 to 60 people were there.
Okay, somewhere between 40 to 60 people were in the room. It was incredible. I was really in tears. I've watched most of these students since they were extremely young. I've been here 13 years, and these are our kids that you become very attached to. Very heartwarming stories. And they all got up there, and each child got an award for what they grew the most. And it was just really, truly amazing. But the businesses that were there were Sawchuck Farm, the Carver Public Library,
Carver DPW,
the Humane Society,
it's what in Plymouth?
The Plymouth Humane Society was there. There's enough.
Wingate
is where most of our students are. The students were so proud of themselves. I mean, they were so proud of themselves. I cannot begin to tell you what an incredible night it was. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting us starting that program. I never, ever thought in 1 year, just 1 year, that we would have gotten so far in this program. I mean, it's just astounding. So it was really a heartwarming night. The teacher is doing a phenomenal job. The kids are absolutely thrilled. And there was a PowerPoint up there, and one of our students kept saying, "That's me, that's me." It was just, they were all so excited and really dressed up. And one of the young men that was there, that I know pretty well, I was talking with him afterwards, and he was telling me that he was so nervous about being there. And some of the kids spoke and some didn't, but they all stood up together in groups. And he said, I couldn't get myself to get up there and speak, but I stood there.
Yeah.
I stood there, and he was so proud of himself to be able to get up in front of a large group and to do that. And all the businesses couldn't speak more highly of the program. So it really is a time that reminds me, as I make it through these graduations, that I make them through some of these events and that are happening in the schools, of what makes this district so great. And it really is incredible, and really proud of some of the accomplishments that we've had. So I just wanted to share some of the end of the year activities that were pretty phenomenal.
That's a nice highlight to end on. I've always said that graduation is the thing that pulls me out of the doldrums of budget season.
Yeah.
Really can sap your energy going through that process year in and year out. And having that sunshine and watching those kids walk across the stage and knowing why we put in these hours and the time to this, it really means a lot. So I'm glad you had that opportunity Tuesday night with that program, and it's going so well. Under new business, there's some handouts I gave to you on some items I'd like us to be considering in September, but to try and keep this meeting short, I'm not going to speak to the items unless there's any questions at this point. If any items come up across your desk over the summer that you would like to bring up as new business, please feel free to reach out to Joy and myself so we can add it to the agendas of our future meetings. There is no old business, but I would like to go back up to the reorganization chart, if that's all right with the rest of you right now. So we have two more positions that we need to vote on, and then we can talk about subcommittees. So a legislative agent. Do I have a nomination for legislative agent? I would nominate you.
Second.
Are there any nominations for legislative agent? Seeing none, all those in favor of me being the legislative agent? Thank you very much, I appreciate that. The other one by law that we have to have a vote and a representative is for the Pilgrim Area Collaborative. And Ed has indicated to me that he enjoys that job and finds it meaningful. I know he's not here tonight, so if he declines a nomination, we can always have a vote at our next meeting, but I would like to nominate Ed to be our representative to the Pilgrim Area Collaborative.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for the Pilgrim Area Collaborative? All those in favor of Ed being our rep? It's unanimous. Very good. Admin review. Mike and Laura, you've pretty much been leading the charge on this one. Would you like to continue on?
Yes.
Would anybody who's on it now like their name taken off the list? All right, let's keep it consistent then. On to negotiations. You see Gordon, Ed, Eric, Chris, with Paula as an alternate.
I would like to continue.
Like to continue? Paula?
Yes.
As the alternate? Chris, you good with staying on negotiations?
I can stay on it if you need me to, yeah.
All right. Gordon?
So I did send a message off to the state ethics, and he said, as we discussed, you may participate in union negotiations in your Silver Lake and Halifax Elementary School role.
And can you just disclose for the committee why you needed to ask the State Ethics Commission about you being on the negotiation team for Silver Lake?
So I was elected as the selectman to Halifax as well. So
congratulations.
So I'm Silver Lake, Halifax Elementary, and Halifax selectman. So I reached out and requested a written determination.
Great, great. So just for the record, Gordon does have a written determination from the State Ethics Commission. That is confidential for his own filings, but we've also talked to the district council.
Yes.
And there is no inappropriate situation with Gordon serving on those three committees. He knows his limitations in some regards from the selectman side of the table, not from our side of the table. But we just wanted everyone to be aware that Gordon does wear several hats, but we are in full compliance with the state ethics regulations. All right. And we'll also, we'll keep that on there as well, unless we hear differently from that. All right. On to policy. Does anybody want off of policy who's currently on policy? All right. So let's keep policy the way it is as well. Career and technical ed. Chris, you're the chair as of right now until we reorg that subcommittee. Would you like to stay on?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Anybody else who's currently on it want to come off, or do we want to keep that pretty static? All right, great. Safer. We just renominated our safety facilities fees and revenue chair. Paul Hatch will be returning as the chair of that subcommittee. Is there anybody on the list currently who would like to be taken off? Laura?
Yeah.
Okay.
I may still come. I know that's okay.
Absolutely.
I'll come when I can, but it's been tough to come to some of those. So you have plenty on the list, so I'll come when I can.
I agree. And to be honest with you, Madam Chair of Safer, are you okay with us not replacing Laura's position so we can try and start narrowing down the membership of that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I know you always say that we're all welcome to join, but maybe the seats at the table could be
That was a
narrowed.
favorite phrase of another person as well, but yes.
Okay, great.
I think we had the 6 before, and then you added one when you added me last year.
That's right. I didn't want to exclude anybody from it, but I am conscious of the fact that we have a majority of the committee on that subcommittee, and that's one of the reasons why we never take a vote in that subcommittee. So, one step in the right direction. Calendar survey, new subcommittee. So, this is going to have a limited charge. Again, it's going to be just to come up with some ideas and suggestions to bring back to the committee about our calendar, different configurations, maybe questions we want to ask the broader community. They have no further authority to act on their own in any regards. It's just an informational and brainstorming committee at this point.
I do.
And I will assume, since Leslie Ann was one of the people who brought it up, that she would probably want to be on it. And Paula?
I apologize, I just noticed, and she's not here.
No.
Did she want to participate in any other subcommittees because she's not on any of them?
revisit that next week.
Yep. I'd be more than happy to bring it to her attention and allow her to look through and select, and we can talk about it at our next meeting if she has any strong feelings. Thank you, Paula, appreciate that. Anybody else for the calendar survey before Laura and Leslie? Gordon?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Gordon. Revolving funds. Paula, you still want to be on revolving funds, Eric? Okay. And sleep study. I think, as we've said before, this is more of a statement to acknowledge the fact that there is research stating that our students in the middle school and high school would benefit from a later start time, though we don't currently have the resources for the resolve to make that a reality here in the district. We've worked on this with members of the community, with parents from all 3 towns. But this continues to be a topic of much discussion, and there are several more schools this year who will be adjusting their start times. So it's something we should keep on the radar.
Did we talk about calling that subcommittee school start time subcommittee?
We did talk about that.
Okay. And what did we decide?
We did.
Because I think that would be a better description of what it is, if we're okay with changing it.
Did we take a vote?
I feel like we changed it, but.
I think we did.
We did.
Sounds like right that.
Yeah.
This is
Thank you for your memory. Appreciate it.
It brings a bell.
So I just wanted to, it just kind of reminded me, but just in the past couple of months, I've had 3 different parents who don't know each other contact me, who didn't know me. They weren't contacting me as a school committee member, but as a friend, concerned about school start times. And I pushed them into the Facebook group that was set up for this. And I just told them, I said, yeah, we looked into it, and there were as many parents, students, and whatnot who were against it as there were for it, including a lot of students, believe it or not. My daughter was against it. So I said, we didn't do anything, and we're kind of waiting to see what the state would do. But just wanted to let you know that there's a lot of parents who weren't involved the first go round, who were so it has some activity, but I thought it was kind of dying, and it's certainly not.
No. So I think it's wise, Ed made a pretty firm stance about keeping that as a subcommittee, even if it doesn't meet, just for the statement purpose that we are aware of it, and we're willing to come back to the table if the time arises, if there's enough voices.
And if you want to put me on that too, just so we have 2 people on it, that'd be great. I've been in a subcommittee of 1.
Thank you. So that was one of the easiest reworks I've seen in a while. Thank you, Paula, for mentioning reaching out to Leslie, and I absolutely will. And then we can revisit it if needed. So thank you for that. Moving on to reports of special committees. Silver Lake Education Association. They were very well represented, the teachers at graduation. When they made that tunnel for the kids to come through as they were walking up to the stage. My favorite part of graduation is we all gather in here with the teachers and with the class that's being celebrated, and the students are in the gymnasium. We walk into the gymnasium with all the teachers, and the minute the teachers come in, the kids start calling to them from across the gymnasium, and then before you know it, they're running towards the teachers and giving hugs and starting to cry. And it is amazing and moving, and there's no doubt that the teachers in the school district change the lives of the students of our 3 communities.
I love graduation. I just, even my boys all of my kids are graduated now. Shouldn't just say my boys. But the chorus, the music that they deliver for graduation every year is amazing. They do an incredible job, like tear-jerking job on the music.
Agreed. Administrative review. Okay. CTE?
Nothing. I think we're going to try and have an open house for the greenhouse, hopefully in July.
Chairman's report, no report. Legislative agents report. Oh, you want me to do that through correspondence? That's right, we did receive the correspondence. So we received a delightful letter from a family who has been engaged with us from the developmental pre-K program. And Joy wanted to read it out loud to the committee tonight.
As I said, this time of year, it's sometimes not everybody makes good choices, and it's a stressful time of year to sort of help people make good choices sometimes. But we got this wonderful letter that we received from some parents of preschool students, and I wrote back to them, thanked them for taking the time to write, because we often hear when people don't like a choice we've made, but people don't always take the time to say thank you. Not that they aren't thankful, but it just takes that extra energy and time. This was a letter that we received, and when I wrote back to thank them, I asked them if they would mind if I shared it to the school committee, and they were absolutely thrilled, so we could acknowledge it. And this preschool program, as you know, is also housed at the Kingston Elementary School, so I plan to read it at Kingston also, because it's sort of a dual program for us. Dear Superintendent Blackwood, please accept our family's sincere thanks. Annabelle and Evelyn Jerrier have participated in your regional integrated preschool program for the past 2 years and will graduate this Wednesday. I am the great aunt of these wonderful twins and am writing this note of appreciation together with their parents, Chris and Kristen Jerrier. We want to express our deepest thanks to every member of their school team. It is difficult to express how much Annabelle and Evelyn have grown in the area of your incredible professionals. Their journey is really one that is worth noting. The girls were diagnosed with autism early and began working with early childhood specialists immediately. Annabelle was just beginning to speak as she began preschool, and Evelyn was still essentially nonverbal. In less than 2 years, our girls have become fully participating students and can express every need and want and thought. They speak, sing, should have called them up on the stage with me, play, and eagerly learn everything we can send their way. There really are no words to express what your team has meant to the lives of our wonderful Annabelle and Evelyn. As an educator for many years, I had the opportunity to attend school meetings as both family and advocate. Kristen and I were consistently impressed by the caring, intelligent professionalism demonstrated by every member of the team. It was clear that the children in your care are valued and that families are welcome and expected to participate in the education process. As the preschool team began to plan for the girls' transition to kindergarten, the elementary team from Kingston Elementary joined in. Both principals, preschool, and kindergarten team members met with us to guide the process. This kind of collaboration and cooperation reduces worries and increases success for all students. You should take great pride in the work of your early childhood and elementary teams. Annabelle and Evelyn love school, love learning, and have great futures ahead. Thank you to you and your amazing teams of professionals for a tremendous start for our girls. We look forward to a long and productive relationship with the Kingston Public Schools. Enjoy a lovely summer. We wish you all a well-deserved break. Dr. M. Louise Charette and Mr. and Mrs. Chris and Kristen Jerrier. So I just wanted to thank them and again publicly acknowledge what a great job our preschool program does and also with the Kingston Elementary School in helping to support that transition.
If I hadn't read that myself several times before coming to the meeting tonight, I'd be in tears right now.
Yeah.
But again, another point to take home tonight of why we do what we do. So definitely kudos to those teachers and their professionalism and caring about our students, and every single child counts.
Absolutely.
So on to the legislative agent report. Yesterday, there was some movement about the Fair Share Amendment. As some of you know, it was going to be a ballot initiative. The state Supreme Court said that that was unconstitutional to move forward that way, so the state legislature has taken it up. It passed through the state Senate and House and is going to be in their next legislative session starting next year. They're going to be talking about a 4% surtax on incomes above $1 million. So stay tuned to that. There's a lot of conversation about where that money will go. There was a lot of amendments proposed yesterday at the State House, one of which was to tie those funds directly to transportation, infrastructure, and education. That did not pass. There was an amendment to put a surcharge of 4% on all state legislators' salaries. That did not pass. There was some really creative maneuvering that happened. So I'll keep you up to date on that. Today, at the State House, Mass Association of School Committees, along with a coalition of like-minded organizations, participated in filing suit against the state for their inequities in funding education in the state of Massachusetts. So a lawsuit has been filed suing Secretary Pizer et al. He's the Secretary of Education in the state for inadequately funding education for our low-income English language learners, special ed students, on behalf of several families as the plaintiffs. So we'll keep you up to date on that as well. Obviously, the hope is that we will give more funds to schools and to the schools that need those funds desperately. The outcome isn't necessarily a lawsuit. The legislature still has time to move and do the right thing to avoid the lawsuit going further forward. The state surplus continues to be over $900 million. There is a chance that some of those funds will be dispersed to the towns. The advice going forth at this point is use them for one-time purchases only. Don't believe that this is going to reoccur year after year after year. If you've been following the state surplus and deficits throughout the year, it's been a wild ride. We were negative over $500,000 at one point. We're over by $900 million at this point. Nobody can quite explain to me why those fluctuations happened, when they happened, and where they happened. So you can't count on this being what's going to be around. I've suggested to our state senators and representatives that funds goes towards fully funding our regional transportation line item for this year, and also making sure that any other obligations that they're not fully funding, like charter school mitigation fund, be fully funded for this year as well. Those are one-time things that they definitely owe us for. They promised us those funds before, and I would like them to hold their promises to be true. That's my report from there. Negotiations.
We did have an opening meeting, I forget the date, but we did meet with them, and then we're going to meet again. Is it August or September? August, yeah. So
We'll
that
set some dates.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Pat, that's not here right now. Policy. Was there a meeting? There was no policy meeting. I did distribute a policy that I'm handing off to the policy subcommittee for review. This is a policy that does exist in other districts. That's where the letters came from. So that's a policy I lifted from other school districts that have a similar language. Revolving funds. Okay. Safety, facilities, fees, and revenue. Paula?
Me.
Buildings and grants.
I'll be very brief since the majority of us sat through the meeting together. Our top priorities, the water, wastewater treatment plant. We have the report from this is what I'm reporting on, right? Am I on the right thing? Okay.
Yes.
I looked at you and I thought maybe I was talking about the wrong thing.
No, just listening.
We have the report back from the consultants. We're going through it. We're going through and working on the items that were on the capital plan for this year and trying to make some progress on those initiatives. The solar, we were hoping to be able to find another solar revenue opportunity. We shook the tree as hard as we could. Christine did a wonderful job in diving in and looking into any other opportunities. Unfortunately, as it is now, the current agreement we have is a lucrative one, and it's not one that we can augment with any other opportunities. So the idea of adding any other solar revenue generating element to our budget is not something that's going to come to fruition. Lastly, our roof effort, we are going out to bid for some roof repairs. We'll get those bids and see where we go with that. And the one thing I do need to ask the committee is to consider changing the start time of our next committee meeting so we can put a safer meeting in 5:30 to 6:30 perhaps, and kick off this meeting if the committee is agreeable at 6:30.
I'll entertain a motion to start the next Silver Lake Regional School Committee meeting for July 11, 2019 at 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Madam Chair. So we will also put up the safeties, facilities, fees, and revenues for 5:30 to 6:30. Great. Any questions for Paula? Thank you very much. School start times is the official title of that subcommittee. Treasurer's report. Mike, do you have the treasurer's report
He
tonight, or
does.
is there no
He
treasurer?
does have one.
All right, Mike.
Oh, okay.
Did your job.
I thought it was the single warrants. That's what I was waiting
Oh,
for.
single signature warrants, there were none.
That's it. Okay, so we have a total of 22 warrants that are around. So 19 total accountables, total of $1,215,562.65. We have 3 payroll for a total of $4 million 35, sorry. What is that?
4,035,000.
35,000, that's right, $35,634.52, for a grand total of $5,251,197.17. And that's it.
Those are big, scary numbers.
A lot of them. I haven't read that big numbers at all.
I can tell you. Take your breath away.
And Mr. Chair of Union 31, do you have any report for us?
We just met, superintendent search is on, that's our topic, so.
And do you have any single signature warrants, Mike?
There were none.
There were not.
So we have a meeting on July 11th. We've just rescheduled that to start at 6:30 because we're going to have the safety facilities fees and revenues meeting at 5:30 that same evening. We have July 4th, which is our Independence Day between now and then. And just as we come to a close tonight, I want to reflect upon where we were last year at the same time. We were surrounded by a sea of red. We had parents, students, concerned community members who were driven to speak to us about an item that they were passionate about, the lights for Sirico Field. And I just want you all to take a moment between now and the next time we come together to reflect on all the things we've accomplished in the last 12 months. And I've been very proud to be your chairman, and I look forward to working with you again next year. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.